Hi, welcome to this is third weekly reflection, and this time I'm at my park, and it's during the 3D printing hackathon organized with Venture Lab and the university here. Hope it works is involved as well, and it's a really fun thing to do now. It's so cool, it's so inspiring with all the teams and everybody doing really crazy things. So I'm trying to record this during the session or during the event. So this is day 2, a bit tired I must confess. I'm more involved behind the scenes and as a coach helping the teams, but it's really cool and really fun to see all the things going on. And this topic today, or the weekly reflection this time, is inspired very much by this event in the sense that it's really interesting with the 3D printing. And like, okay, so what is 3D printing? What can you do with it and stuff like that? And 3D printing is a kind of this technology which has been around for actually quite a long time, called additive manufacturing in other circles. But it was really this kind of got really hyped 8 years ago or something like that, when it started like, okay, you can actually do this at home. You can only own 3D printer. You can really do things with that. And it's interesting to think about those kind of things. Like, okay, how does that work? Like, we have these technologies which have this possibility to really change a lot, and then why do they take off and why do they maybe not take off in that sense? Because I mean, during the last 10 years we've had 3D printers which were like, oh, these can revolutionize how we manufacture things. We no longer need to have factories in China because we can have everybody producing things in their own home. Like, why would we need even logistic chains and big container ships if people can just print it in their home? Like, it could be really revolutionizing the entire manufacturing industry. Hasn't really happened. I am willing to say it the least. We've had other technologies. We've had virtual reality and augmented reality, which is like, wow, why would we walk around in our own mundane normal world when we can be in virtual worlds whenever we want to? And virtual worlds, like virtual reality, redefining how we do movies and cinema in that sense. Games, like, why would we play on a normal flat screen when we can play in a 3D really immersive game world? Why would that happen? Hasn't really happened either. I mean, it's been going forward, but it hasn't really happened either. We've had other things, blockchain, Bitcoin. Oh, the financial system will collapse. Everything will be totally different, but hasn't really happened either. I mean, in all of these fields there's been progress. We've had another field during the last years which also been very, very hyped. Drones, like drone delivery, especially within e-commerce where I'm very active. Drone delivery will replace how we receive packages and make it so that we actually no longer need to have a fridge at home because we can order a Coke and just get it delivered within 5 minutes. Why would we need to have a fridge at home when we can have fresh food and that convenient? Hasn't really happened either. And I think this is very important to keep in mind. Like technology goes through these cycles, and my reflections on that is that that's both good and bad. I actually like that the technology becomes hyped, and because not because of the hype in itself, but because that makes a lot of people think about it. What kind of what can this technology actually make a difference? Like, will it affect this? Will it affect this? And that also makes that actually a lot of money flows into these kind of technologies, because when they become hyped and people say like, wow, this could really change society in the next 5 or 10 or 20 years, then investors and venture capital becomes interested in that, and that makes that actually a lot of money flows into it. Most of that is unfortunately wasted on not the good things, but a lot of that money is also going into actually developing it. Okay, how can we actually, what kind of problems does this field have? How can we actually make this good? How can we actually make this happen? So from that perspective, the building of interest, which indirectly is the hype, is, I think, really, really good, because it not forces us, but it makes us explore new areas and new things. On the other hand, that it doesn't really live up to the hype. That's mostly because media and others can build unrealistic like scenarios in the future. I myself am guilty of that. Like, wow, we could do all of these things with the technology. This could be really fundamentally changing how society functions in one way or another. And that doesn't always happen the way we perceive it as people who try to think about the future. But this is also good in a sense because it actually also makes it that the future isn't really coming as fast as we sometimes think it will. And this that it takes longer time is actually, I think, a good thing as well. So it's good with the hype because it makes people focus on the technology and solve problems. But that it takes longer time than thought to implement is actually also a good thing, I would say, because there are a lot of problems coming up when people start to implement things, when people start to get better at things, and these problems can have effects which aren't so good for us in one way or another, or they can have effects which actually change how society works in certain segments, and that has all different kind of side effects, which not always are good. So for me, it's actually a good balance, I would say. It can definitely be different, but I would say moving too fast isn't in all our interest, but not moving isn't either in our interest. So we need to have both, and that's an effect of having it like this. But this is also something to keep in mind when we talk about current technologies, which are hyped in one sense or another. And I would say currently there's one which is really hyped, which is AI, which is like, wow, this is a solution to everything. And that's something I can think about right now as well. Okay, this can actually has advantages. Actually, has also all kind of dangers. That's a good thing with all the hype as well, because the hype also brings out dangers. People saying like, should we really be doing this? Is this really good? And AI is definitely such a field, but it will take longer than we think, and it's becoming more and more clear. I would say we're almost on the peak of the we have crossed the peak in the AI hype bubble. So it will take longer than we want to. Self-driving cars, yeah. 10 years ago, I would have said, or 10 years ago, I said that, yeah, in 10 years, maybe not 10 years, 8 years ago, so I said like in 10 years, I might be able to drive a car without having a driver license. Currently, I will say it's at least 10 years still away, because it's just so much harder to make an AI drive a car than people actually thought it would be, and for all kind of reasons. So that's how the world is. It's very complicated. But we also have another technology which is just about being hyped, which we'll probably see a lot more, which is the CRISPR-Cas9, this DNA technology, which has a huge potential to affect everything. But even if we see all that huge potential now, and we see all of those dangers now, we also should keep in mind, yeah, it'll probably be a lot harder than we think to do it. So it's nothing which will happen the next year or the next 3 years. It will take 5-10 years before anything really happens. And then we should also look back, the same as with the 3D printing or drones or any of the other previously hyped technologies. It's not that they will change everything. It's mostly that they do evolve things, but they often evolve in areas where we didn't really think about that. And most of the time, actually, in business or industry or something like that, where they can really change how certain industry works, but it doesn't really change how society works. So this leap between making a change in a field and making change for everything is quite big. But yeah. And a recommendation as well, if you are interested in the CRISPR-Cas9, you really should watch the Netflix documentary series, Unnatural Selection. It's awesome documentary, and gives you a lot of thoughts. But keep in mind hyping of technology and how long things take, and look back at things you might have thought would have changed before, and did they change or did they change not, and stuff like that. Weekly reflections, technology and change. Hard things, but very fun things as well.